Hello. I am back doing another live, and I am just going to keep doing these lives because I know that eventually this information is going to be put out and it's going to be useful to someone. So, girl can hope, right? So, I got all ready tonight. I went and did my research, and one of the topics we want to talk about tonight is how much do nurses make? So many people ask me this. It is not a topic I like to talk about. Money is not a topic anyone likes to talk about. But I'm going to talk to you about it tonight because it's an important aspect of what your career growth can be. And one of my most important pieces of advice that I give nurses is don't get stuck. And this isn't just for nurses. This is for CNAs, this is for LVNs, this is for registered nurses who are working in spaces or specialties or subspecialties that they're not content in and they have a desire to do something else. I see so many nurses get stuck. I see so many students get stuck after they get out of school. They have taken a contract as a new grad, they stick it out, and they stay sometimes longer than they probably should. One of the things we need to understand in this world is that there is an expiration date to everything. And although our career doesn't have an expiration date, sometimes our time in a certain area does. And it's important to ask yourself really important questions about your ability to continue to provide excellent care to your patients. Are you serving them by doing what you're doing and staying where you're at? Or are you stagnant? Are you not learning anymore? Are you needing to be in a separate space, but you have dug your heels in for too long and you're staying somewhere that you shouldn't? That includes staying in places where your salary is not reflective of the skills you currently possess. As nurses, when we come out of school, we're not ready to be in advanced practice just yet. And sometimes we need to accept positions like I did in the very beginning of my career, where I was working in a teaching hospital for 3 years under contract. And my salary when I started out was less than $16 an hour. And this was quite a while ago. I knew, though, that that was going to be a time where I was going to have to suck it up, do my time, learn all that I could, continue to give back to my patients, do everything I could to the best of my ability, and when the time was right, I would make the move elsewhere. What I noticed with my particular group of new grad nurses was that we were all there up to the 3-year mark, and most of us left immediately following the end of our contract. That was because the hospital was not willing to pay us what we were worth at that point. They wanted to keep us at a substandard pay rate, even though we now had 3 years of experience under our belt. There were tons of travel nurse companies that were constantly approaching us, or headhunters that were trying to seek us out, that were offering us like $10,000 sign-on bonuses to do contracts with them. And although I enjoyed the work that I was doing, I had been precepting new grads at that point for over a year. I had taken advanced practice courses. I had gotten certifications and so many other things. And yet the hospital wasn't willing to budge on the salaries, and they were sticking us right where we were at when we started. So, unfortunately, when hospitals do that and they dig in their heels on not paying nurses what they're worth, there is a high turnover rate, and people come and people go. And what you have to remember is this isn't like 1950, 1940, 1960s, where people went into a job and they stayed there for the duration of their whole career and they retired from a place after 40 years of service. Our years of service are the amount of time from the time we get our license until we decide to retire from our career. And we're probably going to end up working at a lot of different places. So, one of my most important, there's a lot of important tidbits I'm going to give you, but I am going to say it's important to not stay too long. It's important to not stay past your expiration date when it's time to move on. It's like being in a burning building. If you're on the sixth floor and you smell smoke and you keep smelling smoke and you know there's a fire down on the second floor, how long is it going to take you before you actually create an exit plan? Are you going to wait till that fire reaches you before you leave and you're engulfed in smoke and fire and flames? No. You should get out when you realize and you have the inkling that it's time, and you need to listen to that inner voice. So, before we jump into salaries, I just wanted to kind of get that out there. So, when I did my research on this, I learned that there was a vast difference in salaries from state to state. And when we talk about nursing salaries, we're talking about registered nurses. And I'm not talking about the difference. There is kind of a difference between an RN, an ADN, and a BSN. And there are states that require that for you to work there. I know that in some of the compact states like Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, there are BSN requirements for you to work as a registered nurse in the state. States like California, where I work, there is not the educational requirement for you to have a BSN to be in certain areas. There is. Did I say that right? I don't know. But there is a requirement for you to have a certain level of experience to go into certain advancements in your career. Like you want to be a nurse manager of a department. Some of them, the hospitals are going to require that you have a bachelor's degree. If you want to teach, you need to have your bachelor's and your master's. Unfortunately, those are some of the lower paying jobs on the spectrum. So when you get into salaries, we can talk state to state and we can talk about how much nurses make beginning. But what I want to emphasize to you is that nursing is on the whole, all the thousands and thousands of jobs and specialties out there, nursing is one of the highest paying careers that you can actually come out of school after graduation and make a salary coming immediately out of school that is only second to engineering. That includes doctors. Nurses are making more than physicians right out of school. Now, the long term of what that lifespan means as far as where their salaries go is up to them. You could go into aesthetics, and although it's a really competitive market right now, there's lots of classes out there that teach aesthetics. You might start out at say, and the range in California is say 65,000 a year, all the way up to sky's the limit. A lot of the mean for aesthetics nurses that are running their own practices with a physician is 170,000. And I'm pulling these numbers off of Indeed, Glassdoor, and the nursing license map. That is, the data is collected by the boards of nursing that do surveys on this kind of data. Nursing assistants, CNAs, make a mean set. Now, these numbers that I have right here are from 2019, and we currently don't have new data since the pandemic. There is some out there, but not collectively, and the boards haven't come together to replace the Bureau of Labor Statistics information. So we have 2019 data. This is not current. I know that nurses, everything changed in 2020 after the pandemic, and I know that in the next 5 years, things are going to change even more. We are at a drastic shortage of nurses. There is a lot of sick people out there, and the deficits of nurses in the state of California, it's estimated there's a 150,000 to 200,000 nurses short as of now. A lot of people are saying it's less than that, but there is data to prove that we are almost 200,000 in the hole right now on nurses. That number is only going to go up in the next 5 years because we have a massive amount of nurses that are set to retire. The boomers are no longer wanting to stay in it. There's a lot of new grads that don't want to stay in it, and I would encourage you to reconsider that. So, I want to go over a few things right now about nurses. People clump nursing assistants, LPNs, or practical LPNs and LVNs into the same category: RN, NP, nurse practitioners, nurse midwives, nurse anesthetists, and nursing instructors, or how they categorize it. If you're a nursing assistant, you've gone to school for a couple of months and you got a certificate. That is not a full-blown registered nurse license. That means that you are a assistant to a nurse. So nursing school can take several years to complete, and from there, registered nurses can go on to become nurse practitioners through additional education, nurse midwives, nurse anesthetists, and again, master's degrees for going on to instructors, teaching, and other professions in public health. So, a CNA, the mean salary across all states is anywhere from $30,000 to $55,000. Licensed practitioner, LPN or LVN is $48,000 to $67,000. An RN mean salary is 77,000. That number, according to Glassdoor and Indeed, is anywhere from 65,000 up to 174,000. If you're working in critical care, cardiac cath lab, I'm not going to lump emergency in there because some emergency nurses, because it's become a career that a lot of people want to go into, it is slightly less than a critical care nurse, which the mean salary can be up to 165,000 and beyond. Same with cardiac cath lab, 140 to 165. So we're getting into six-digit salaries at this point. I have been making over six-digit salaries since about 2013. That's just me. I got my BSN in 2010 after I got my RN in 2000, and I continued to get my education and get additional certificates as time went on. I have worked in several specialties, including critical care, organ transplant, neuro ICU, emergency department, trauma, different levels of trauma. And so I've kind of gotten my experience a little more rounded. And at this point in time, because I have been working since 2000 and I'm 20 years out, my salary range is going to be different than a new grad coming out of the field. I don't like talking about money. I don't like this topic at all because it seems like it's something we shouldn't be talking about, but it is important for new grads and people coming out to understand what it means. And when I say again that nursing is one of the top, it is only second to engineering that has one of the highest paying salaries coming directly out of college. And that is astounding. So there is a lot of job security. There is a lot of jobs everywhere. Currently, there are over 2.7 million nurses in the country. 2.7 million. So we've got a lot of nurses, but again, we're at massive deficits in each state, and that's only going to get worse. And with that, there are projections that the nursing salary could go up to as high as 20 to 25% higher than it is right now. That is a lot of job security. And I can also attest to the fact that when you're going to get loans on things like a mortgage, a car, other things that you're requesting banks fund you to continue building your financial platform, your personal growth, your investment, your portfolio in general. It is a lot easier to get lending to you. It is much easier to have lenders look at you because it is a favorable profession. And when I have purchased several homes through the course of my adult life. I've done rental thing, I've done all of that as well. And every time I've gotten a mortgage, whenever it came to my profession, the bank seemed to look more at not the places I've been and the changes on the jobs, but they look at it as I've been a licensed registered nurse with no breaks in my license since 2000. So it doesn't seem to be a hard thing for me to pass on that aspect, and it tends to be one of the things that helps me along in my process, and I haven't had a lot of problems securing loans where I know that the people who have only stated income back in the mortgage boom industry time, that was easier to get, but it's not now. If you own your own business and you're working for yourself, again, that's stated income and you're a 1099 employee, that's hard to do. It's harder to get loans on that kind of thing. And I'm not going to get into telling you that what lenders do and everything else. I can only speak to my personal experience on what I have gone through when I have gotten loans on vehicles or mortgages or whatever. But you're a much better prospect, and I think it will speak volumes when you have that kind of security of having your education, having a solid career, having something that you can show that is a very secure profession. We are never going to be out of work. There's always going to be jobs for us. It's not going to be You don't have to go through periods of extended unemployment if you're an able-bodied working nurse. And there's so many aspects of different things that you can go into if you don't want to be a bedside nurse. You don't have to do bedside nursing. You can go into administrative. You can go into public health. You can do teaching. You can do informatics, which is writing programs for and software for EMR, which went into effect several years ago. Electronic medical records are the hub of how those are written are by nurses who have gone into informatics. So if you're not thinking that nursing is for you because of bedside clinical care, try to look at some of the links I'm going to put below. After I put this on the replay, I'm going to put some links about the types of jobs there are, the mean salaries, what's out there, and do your research. If you're thinking of going to school or you already in school, look at what is out there and take it all into consideration. Um, yeah, I know I sound like I'm trying to tell everybody to come into nursing. I don't think it's for everyone. I'll tell you that. Nursing is not for everyone. There are some people that should not be nurses. So I do know that as well. I do believe too that if you are not someone who has your heart in patient care, you are not going to last long at the bedside. And that's just the way it is. I always say that nurses that go into this for the money don't usually last at the bedside longer than 5 years. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. There are some nurses that have been there way too long, and if you're in nursing, you know this. There are nurses who they come in to get their paycheck and pay their bills, and they are checked out from the moment they get there to the moment they leave. All they want to do is do the bare minimum to take care of patients. Nobody wants to be working with that kind of person, but they're out there. Can't do anything about it, but you know what? There is just some people that stay too long, like I was talking about earlier. I just wanted to get this out there. I wanted to put it on. I wanted to talk about this tonight because as I did a poll on this about what people wanted to talk about, people wanted to talk about money and how much nurses make. So I'm hoping this helps. Like I said, there are links below from the nursing salary map by state, and you're going to have to look at it for your state. Some of the states that have lesser income also have the cost of living is way less. Like where I live in San Diego in California, oh my gosh, we are at one of the highest cost of livings in the country. Now, I kind of feel like you get what you pay for. I also make a higher salary out here in California. That's just the way it is. So you kind of have to look at the give and take. What's the cost of living in your neck of the woods? How much the salaries affect that? And if you're thinking of traveling to California to come get a paycheck and leave, what you have to remember is you're going to have to afford housing while you're here, and housing is not cheap. It's several thousand a month for rent. If you're living anywhere that has you probably could get a room with several people if you wanted to do something crazy. But you're gonna have to look at an extended period where you have a very high cost of living and having to juggle maintaining your cost of living in your home state if you're coming out here just to work and go home. Now, when you think about traveling with a travel nurse contract, what you have to ask them is, how much is my salary based on hourly? What is the stipend? And you should take more of a stipend for housing than your actual salary. When they tell you that your stipend is, when you look at the numbers, and it's almost 40 to 50% of what your actual hourly is, your stipend is tax free. Your hourly is not. So kind of remember that when you're looking at it and they're offering you a fat stipend for housing and everything else, and then they're cutting you on the hourly, they already have these numbers worked out. They know how much their take is going to be. But what you have to remember when you're working with a registry or travel nurse company is you are paying them to be your pimp. It's just what it is. They are pimping you out to the hospitals. They're taking their fat cut and they're giving you the leftovers. That's what they do. Also, I have been on LinkedIn. When I moved to San Diego, I had to reapply for jobs else, down here when I was relocating this last year. And it was a wild experience because there are a lot of fraudulent scams going on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, and you need to be really, really careful. Um, there are scams that are trying to get your information before you've even been offered a job. I have seen that a lot. There's also a lot of companies that claim they're travel nurse contract companies, and they're not even based in this country. What you need to understand is that there are really strict laws about contracts. And you need to look at how much you can ask them too. How much is your cut out of what the hospital's paying you to have me go in there? Most of them aren't going to want to disclose it, and the honest ones will. You want to stick with travel nurse companies that have been around a long time. You want to look at their profiles and you want to vet your recruiter. There's a lot of recruiters out there that have the attention span of like 3-year olds. And when you talk to them, they're like in and out and in and out, and they're all over the place. So you want a recruiter that's going to listen to you, understand what your needs are. They're also going to express to you honestly what the hospital or what the contract is looking for. So just kind of like really play things out in your mind, write it all down, make sure you have a good grasp on what's going on, and read your contracts. Some of those contracts have clauses in them that state that should you not complete the contract, you're forfeiting portions of your pay. Understand what it means should the contract not work out. Understand what it means when they say you're going to get a bonus, that that bonus doesn't come to you at the end of a year or 2 years after you've worked for them not long. It's not an end of contract bonus, it's an end of a certain time period. So please read your contracts. Do not give out your Social Security information or your personal information to anyone online unless the whole process has been vetted, you have a formal offer letter from an employer, and you're going through the onboarding process. Those letters of hire are contingent on you going through a background, and a reputable company will be doing the background, not the recruiter. You should never be giving a recruiter your Social Security number, date of birth, or personal information. There are some out there that are trying to scam you. I've seen a ton of them when I was looking for jobs, like I said, early in 2021. So I just want you to be aware of how that works as well. Don't get scammed. Guard your personal information, guard your data, guard your license information, guard your Social Security with great care, because there are a lot of people out there that are looking to exploit that. Um, I'm trying to think about what else I wanted to talk about tonight, and I had a bunch of notes written, and I've got them on here, and I hate like going on and looking at my notes while I'm doing the live, but I'm going to do it anyway. We've talked about not getting stuck. We've talked about salary prospects, and the prospects through 2030 are going to be a lot higher. Like I said, up to 20 to 25% higher than they are right now. When you think of your schooling expenses, if you have been considering going to nursing school, I want you to really consider how much it's going to cost you in the long run when you go through school. Student loans are no joke. They have to be repaid. You cannot file bankruptcy, or anything else to get rid of student loans. And everybody says, like, oh, student loans can be written off, the government will take care of it. No, they do not take care of it until you've made many, many, many years of payments and you have done a lot of service in the industry. You are not eligible for a write off of anything until you have gone through a certain period of repayment. So understand what that means. Understand what it means when you take out a new student loan every quarter or every semester, that you need to, at the end of your schooling, you need to consolidate those loans, or you're going to have 15 to 20 payments that you have to make every month. Consolidation at the end of your schooling is one of the first things you need to do aside from passing your NCLEX. Make sure you get in touch with your student loan officer or whoever is handling your student loans. Consolidate those loans into one so you're not missing payments. People think because they're making a payment, they're paying off their loans, and then they have 14 loans going into default because they're only paying on one of those checks. If you have 14 loans that are all at $100, it's a lot of money coming out of your pocket. And you need to consolidate that appropriately when you first get out of school and not get into trouble. It happens. You need to be applying for scholarships and Pell Grants and things like that through school. And there are a lot of things that can pay for school, but you also want to vet your schooling. And I'm going to do a whole nother live on student loans, vetting your schooling process, and applications at another time. But I just want to put this out there right now because I think it's really important that you understand that you must go to an accredited school to even be eligible to take the NCLEX and pass to get your registered nurse license. There are unaccredited schools out there that have defrauded a lot of people who thought they were going through and getting accredited program degrees, and come to find out that they did not meet the criteria to even test for the registered nurse license. Don't get into trouble with whether you're doing your RN, your BSN, any of that. make sure you have checked that the school is accredited and it's on the list with the BRN that you are going to be testing with or the NCSBN. Right now, we only have a few states that are not in compact licensure, and you'll understand this more if you're a nursing student as time goes on. I unfortunately live in a state that is not a compact state. I am also licensed in several other states, which are compact states. But because my home state of California is a non compact state, in order to maintain licenses, my license, Pennsylvania, Vermont, Maine, all the other places I have licenses, I have to pay annual fees individually to each one of those states. And because I'm not in a compact state, it's frustrating at times. I've been offered contracts, or during COVID, we had this like blanket thing where we could work in other states, and there was a time period where governors were waiving certain aspects, but that's not really in effect anymore. When there is critical need, sure, it can happen. They can waive that, nurse license. But if you live in a compact state, great, you're golden. You can travel anywhere through the 50 states and work within those states. I do believe that to work in like California and a couple others that aren't compact, like Alaska, Hawaii is not compact. I have to look at the map again. I think there's like 6 of us that are not yet in the compact state licensure. We have to apply well ahead in advance to work in those states. So if you're in a compact state, then good for you. Kudos. You only have to check with the NCSBN about accredited schooling. If you're in a non-compact state, you're going to have to check with the licensure of your state and make sure that your school is accredited. I have to check on that, but the NCSBN may actually have a list for all 50 states. But make sure your school's accredited. Got a little fly flying around here, and I don't know what it's doing. It's like a gnat. Ew. Ew. Okay. So, we've been on here almost a half an hour tonight. I know I don't have anyone in the chat, and it's such a bummer. But that's okay. I'm good with that. I actually know that since last week, I've been doing my lives and I have been putting out some content. People are visiting the streams after the fact, which thank you so much. I appreciate that. I am really trying to build this channel. I want to keep this going. I want to start this movement with all of you and continue to build community in this room. If you haven't picked this room, then I hope you're in another community and another room, because really, as a nurse, you really need to find those other nurses that we can get in and chat about the things that are the most important things to us, and build community together. Because unfortunately, just being part of an association, whether it's a association for critical care nurses, ENA, all of those are great to a degree, but they've become highly politicized. And this is my view, because I have paid into those for a long time. And it seems to me that they seem to promote bills and legislation, which is great, but they always take a side. And whether you agree with that or not, you're part of that and your money is going to that. And, I feel like social media, YouTube, there are so many ways that we can build community outside of just being part of those associations. Although I do believe it is important to be part of those associations, I think you need to be building community with nurses that you can actually have one on one talks with, and that you can meet other people and have real discussions. And I'm not talking about just meeting and talking to your coworkers, because that can feel a little incestuous at times because it's part of your whole like core world. It's nice to talk to people who are out and about and doing it in other states and other areas. And I feel like this could bring us together and help us to do that. So please join me. I would love it if you subscribe. I'm trying to build this channel. I have a goal. I would love to get to 1,000 subscribers before December 31st. That is just my goal. I think I can do it. I hope with your help that we can do it together, and it would mean the world to me, like the world. In my heart, I really would. It would mean a lot if you would subscribe and join me here, because I have a lot to say. I have a lot I'd like to contribute to our nursing community. I want to join hands with you. I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to keep this going. So I hope you all are having a wonderful night. Come back here. I'm going to post links in the replay. Like I said, I've got some other information and documents about salaries and descriptions, and I hope you'll check it out. But thank you so much for coming. Nobody, but thank you for checking me out on the replay. So if I don't catch you this time, I'll catch you next time. Thank you.